Hey everyone, this is your host, Andrew Holland. Thank you so much for listening to the Andrew Holland podcast each and every week, where we talk about business, entrepreneurship, and everything in between. As an entrepreneur who's been through a lot of highs and a lot of lows, I started this podcast to be a source of weekly motivation, inspiration, and support for all of us who are working to achieve something meaningful. And as importantly, so that none of us ever have to feel alone or isolated while we're doing so. Together, we explore the stories of successful people, we get insight and advice from individuals who have accomplished amazing things. We discuss practical and fascinating business models and strategies, and we dive deep into understanding ourselves as human beings. So please, help me grow our group and subscribe to the show on your favorite audio platform. Subscribe to, watch, and thumbs up our episodes on our YouTube channel, the Andrew Holland Podcast. Follow and interact with me on Twitter and Threads. My handle is A Holland Podcast. That's A Holland Podcast. That's probably my favorite part of the whole podcast is the interaction I get with our guests and with you as our listeners. Lastly, if you enjoy the show and you want to support what we're working to accomplish, please share our show with your friends, with your family, and your colleagues at work. This show is nothing without you and your support, and I'm so incredibly thankful for each and every one of you listening, watching, and sharing the podcast every single week. Now it's time to get our motivation, inspiration, and support for this week and jump into today's episode. In today's episode, Steve Grear, the owner and founder of Reshoevn8r, joins us in studio. Steve tells us what Reshoevn8r is, a very luxury product for cleaning sneakers, something that you wouldn't think could turn into a multi-million-dollar business, but that's exactly what Steve did. He shares with us the rude awakening in his life experience he had that really shook him to the core and ultimately resulted in him figuring out that this business was how he could turn his life around, to the challenges of growing an e-commerce business with the majority, if not all, of Reshoevn8r's sales currently occurring on two separate platforms, their website and on Amazon. And he gives us advice to anyone thinking about starting an e-commerce business, or if you're currently in a business whose sales are primarily dependent upon online traction, content creation. Steve shared so much advice. We had a real fun, authentic conversation, and I think you'll get a lot from it. I know I certainly did.
While Andrew Holland is a CPA, a real estate broker, and involved in multiple businesses, including some investment companies, the Andrew Holland podcast is for informational purposes only. All of Andrew's views and those of his guests are solely their opinions and do not reflect the opinions of any of the businesses or companies Andrew or his guests are affiliated with. You should not treat any advice, conversation, business recommendation, investment recommendation, or anything of the like as a specific inducement to make a specific business decision, take a specific action, make a particular investment, or follow a specific business or investment strategy. Thank you so much for listening and enjoy the show.
Steve,
Yep.
thank you so much for joining us in studio today, and welcome to the Andrew Holland Podcast.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
How's your day going?
It's going good.
So I've read a bit of your background.
Okay.
You and I have talked briefly.
Yep.
And you have an incredible background for your upbringing and the struggles that you went through.
Yep.
And what's funny is the people who seem to succeed the most are the people who have had it the hardest in life.
I've kind of been picking up on that myself. Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because they've weathered the storm, and it takes a lot to run a business, as you know. So if you haven't been through some things, it may have a worse effect on you and it would probably be more impactful to go through the struggles of business if you haven't been through struggles in your personal life.
So I want to hear about the struggles that you went through as a child and how you ultimately got to where you are. But let's talk about your business first.
Okay.
Reshoevn8r.
Yep.
The first time I learned about it and heard about you was from a mutual friend.
Okay.
And I thought, how I thought this about so many businesses.
Yeah.
And I think this dispels the myth. People are frozen in what should I start or what should I do?
Yeah.
I believe, and I'm curious to hear your perspective, any business can work. Any business can work, generically speaking, if there's a quality product or there's a need for it.
If you're solving a problem, yeah.
Yeah, and you've got a commitment to consistency.
Yeah.
So tell me, tell our listeners, what is your business?
So we sell premium shoe care products. So it's really geared towards people that really like having nice, clean sneakers. And they care about what they look like, and they want to maintain the value or extend the life of their shoes.
Not just dress shoes.
Not just dress shoes, more sneakers. It's more sneaker based or casual shoes.
Okay.
But it does clean boots and other things too. But it's primarily for sneakers.
And how does it work?
So we started, the reason that I started the business is I had developed a process over like 15 years of putting shoes in a pillowcase, putting them in the washing machine, tying a knot. After they went in the washing machine, I'd take them out, put a cedar shoe tree in to maintain the form, just so they didn't, crinkle up or whatever. And one night I was doing this, and we can get into my backstory before, but one night I was doing this, and I was thinking, I was untying the knot with the butter knife. It takes like 5 minutes to get the knot untied.
This is of a pillowcase that just came out of the
washing machine, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm like, wow, man, why isn't there an easier way to do this? I'm like, if there's, so I started thinking, I'm like, man, if I'm a skeptical person, I'm like, if I would be interested in this, there have to be other people that would be interested in this too. I'm not the only one washing my shoes in the washing machine.
Mm-hmm.
So I just started doing research and realized that there was no sneaker laundry system on the market. So I basically came up with a name, filed a patent, got a utility patent approved.
How long ago was this?
10, 11 years ago.
And this is a process you developed over 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, yes, basically. It's not much of a process, but for mesh shoes, running shoes, stuff like that, trainers, that's like really what I most wore back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And any type of mesh material or canvas, you if you just take a brush and a cleaning solution to it, it just gets dingy. You have to put it in the washing machine for it to get clean. So that is really what sparked it. And I would just, every so often I would spring clean all my shoes, and I'd basically clean them all, make them all look brand new again.
So you were passionate about your shoes.
Yeah.
Tell us why, how. Now, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for that, because I go through so many shoes, and when they get dirty to a point, I've been in construction in my life, I've been in garbage in life, I'm like, well, I guess I got to buy a new pair of shoes. Never in my wild, foolishly, because shoes aren't cheap. You can spend as much as you want, but $100 is pretty typical for a pair of sneakers. Not Air Jordans or anything like that. And so I would just be like, well, these I got to throw out. And I hated it. But I never thought there must be a solution to this. But that's how you thought.
Yeah, well, so growing up, we didn't have money. So I had to take care of the shoes that I had. And my mom always instilled in me the importance of clean shoes. She basically told me that as long as your shoes look good, you can have old clothes and you can still look good or presentable. But if you have new clothes on and your shoes look like it, you're going to look like it at the end of the day. So I've just had that kind of instilled in me since a young age. She was basically telling me, take care of your stuff.
Yeah.
And my grandfather was, he always had shoe trees in his shoes. When we'd go visit him in California, I was just always enamored by these things. I don't know. Yeah. So I've always been into sneakers.
Since you were a kid?
Since I was a kid. I just love having a new pair of sneakers. Yeah.
So tell us about your childhood. Obviously, you said you didn't have a lot of money. Where did you grow up?
Tucson.
Okay. And single mom, right?
Single mom.
Didn't have a lot of money to spend. You like shoes.
Yep.
Is that when this process started?
Yeah.
Of when you discovered how you can clean shoes?
No, that didn't start till I was probably living on my own.
Okay.
I was probably 19 when I started. Yeah, probably about 19 when I started doing that.
Throwing them in the washer.
Yeah, throwing them
in a pillowcase.
In a pillowcase.
How did you figure that out?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I'm not sure. I just maybe
Stumbled
had the idea. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about, and I want to get into the grit of your childhood, because I think that's how we started this off, is that's what's allowed you to get to where you are. I want to know, when did you decide that aha moment. Everybody talks about the aha moment.
Yeah.
When did you figure out or decide I'm going to, because it's one thing to say, oh, this would be a cool
Yeah.
business. We all say
It
that.
was
Something goes
It
wrong
was that night.
when you were trying to
Oh, yeah.
untie the knot.
Yeah. I basically went and woke up my girlfriend at the time and said, "Hey, I have an idea." She's like, "Yeah, whatever. I'm going back to sleep." Right. But it was that night for sure.
And what were the first steps that you took?
Oh man, just research.
Okay.
Like what is out there? Is there anything out there like this? Because I wanted to file for the patent.
Mm-hmm.
So basically just research, and then really just figuring out. Again, I didn't even graduate high school, so figuring out what are the first steps. So really figuring out where can I order, how many of these can I do a test run on.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically produced 1,000 of them to start. It was the least amount that I could do. So I basically had to learn as first time ordering on Alibaba. So for those of you, and I had no idea. I kind of honestly just went for it and said, "Hey, if it works out, great. If not," I didn't know if anything was going to even arrive.
Yeah.
So I had to order different individual pieces. So I ordered the shoe trees from China because I couldn't get them in the States. And then I used a shipping tube to start that I just rolled a label on.
This was how you were going to get.
This is how I developed the first product. Yeah.
Okay.
So just the sample or the first 1,000 pieces, that's what I did.
How long ago was this?
I had the idea in 2010, so probably 2011.
Okay. So going on 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
Alibaba. How did you know about Alibaba? Most people don't know about Alibaba.
Yeah, because I was just researching where to buy shoe trees online, I guess, and it just popped up. I mean, I spent hours in front of that computer just
doing your research.
I had no idea how to do or what to do. I just started doing it.
And for our listeners that maybe don't know what a shoe tree is, because I never assume anything, what is that?
So a shoe tree is just they make different ones. Cedar shoe trees are a little more bulky, and they basically maintain the form of your shoe. But I wanted something that you could actually put in the washing machine so you could wash it and it never loses form, because my process prior to that was putting a cedar shoe tree in afterwards. But the process for the sneaker laundry system is you put a washable shoe tree in the shoe the whole time it's in the washing machine.
So what you were basically trying to figure out how you could commercialize putting shoes in a pillowcase and get a clean shoe.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. What did the very most MVP, minimum viable product, look like for Reshoevn8r?
It was the first product that didn't even have a cleaning solution. It was a brush, a terrible nail brush that didn't work very well. And this was like the first samples. I ended up getting brushes, but basically one shoe cleaning brush, a pair of shoe trees, and the laundry bag. So that's what the first kit was.
This was back in 2011.
2011.
What did you patent? Because
it's the collection of all those together. So a utility patent is all of those things sold as one.
Okay, so no one else could combine them in that manner.
Correct.
To make money.
Correct.
Without violating your patent.
Yeah.
Tell us the progression from there. I mean, your girlfriend at the time must have thought you were crazy, or
probably, but I think she was Hispanic. She was raised to support.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember her telling me, specifically, my grandmother always told me to support, my men or whatever it is, just with whatever endeavors that they're looking to do. So she had support. She didn't help much. That's a whole nother long story. Yeah.
Anytime you mix personal and business, it's we'll have to get on that topic, but we'll be here for years.
Yeah.
So you order what were you doing to survive? You said you dropped out of college. You dropped out of high school, rather.
So at that point, I don't remember if I started bartending. Again, we can get into that story later.
Get into it now.
Okay. So prior to that, the main reason that I started this business, because I got arrested for selling marijuana.
Okay.
So that is really what sparked my entrepreneurial journey. I shouldn't say that, because I had been selling weed for about 15 years prior to that.
Okay. This was before weed was legalized in a lot of states, of course. We're talking about 2010, 2011 time frame.
So the day Michael Jackson died, because I remember listening to the radio, is the day that I got arrested. So first time really I've ever been arrested in my life. I'm 30, I don't know, 34 years old or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically went to jail. The judge let me off pretty easy because I'd never been arrested before. But I went to jail, and the minute I got there, I'm like, I don't belong here. I don't belong here.
It was that bad.
Oh, it's terrible, terrible place. The fact that people keep going back there, I get it, circumstances, but terrible. Yeah, the food's terrible, the people are terrible. I mean, it's just not. I just didn't belong there. So I really started thinking, what am I going to do now? Because I always knew I had one chance. I can get arrested once, probably going to get a slap on the wrist. It's when you repeat offend that you get into big trouble.
Yeah.
Right. So I always knew that I'm going to get one slap on the wrist, then I'm going to have to figure something out.
And you're talking about for selling weed, not
for selling weed.
Obviously, there's far greater felonies.
Of course, yes.
One and done type of situation.
Yeah. So really, I was thinking about different businesses to start, and I'll tell you a quick story. One of them was like, it's an easy, no barrier to entry as a carpet cleaning business, right? So I went to the place that sold the equipment, and I'm looking around, and I remember this guy coming in, and he starts talking to the guy, and he's like, "Yeah, you wouldn't believe what I had to clean up today. Somebody shot killed themselves." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm out of here."
No carpet business.
No carpet business. And then just this night when I'm cleaning shoes to sell on eBay, I'm like, "Man, there's something here." And as I started early in the process, I submitted it to Shark Tank. I actually had them call. We went through. They wouldn't accept me because I had a felony.
Really?
Yeah. So I went through the whole thing, like sent in the video, like was getting callbacks, and I was just up front. And I told the recruiter, I'm like, "Hey, this is something that has happened in my past." And he's like, "Just be honest, they're going to find it anyway. And they will not have you on the show if you have any sort of felony," which is kind of stupid because the story's better. And it's not like it's a violent crime or anything.
Right.
So yeah, the day I got that call, I was like freaking out.
Yeah.
Because I thought I was going to get on Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have any sales at this point?
Very, very minimal.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. The first 2 years, it probably took me 2 years to sell the first 1,000.
Okay. And how did you market them?
Well, that's
wait. We skipped the story. We were talking about bartending and how you got money and how you survived. So you're in jail. So and that's your wake up call. Like,
yep.
That's what shakes you loose and says, Steve, your life is going to go one of two ways.
Yeah.
It's either going to be exponentially up or exponentially down. And if you don't make a dramatic difference in what the actions you're taking, you're going to end up back here permanently.
Correct.
The day you get out of jail, a bond, you get out. You're there for one night, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's a whole other story too. Not even a full night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just by the time when I got sentenced. Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation too. But,
okay.
Yeah.
If we have time, we'll return to that. But so that shakes you loose. What are the next actions you take in the following weeks?
Luckily, I had some money stashed away that I was living on.
Okay.
But
how did you get it? Because of selling weed. Okay.
Yeah. One of my buddies in Tucson's pretty successful. He owned a bar. So I basically went to him and said, "Hey man, you got any jobs that I can, do?" And he gave me a job as a doorman.
Okay.
So running security. After like 2 months, I went to him, I said, "Hey man, I got more to offer than this, right? I need something else." So he's like, "You want to come in for free and learn how to bartend?" So I came in for free, started learning how to bartend. And that really supplemented my income because I could work at night, work on this during the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's cash money.
It
was enough. It was less expensive to live.
Yep.
You
didn't have a full-time job at the time.
I did not have a
You're
full-time
working
job.
on what would become Reshoevn8r full-time.
Correct.
Had you come up with a name yet?
I had. Yeah.
You had.
Yeah,
okay, we'll have to talk about the genesis story for that.
Yeah.
We'll
That's
get
a
to
good
that
one.
later.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're working bartending.
Yep.
And that's enough to survive.
Yep.
Go from there.
Yeah, so really just started working on it. I did a lot of research online. Google was like my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, I wasn't tech savvy by any means. I mean, I could barely type,
mm-hmm.
To be honest with you. So just really learning, just doing research, and then kind of just learning as I went along. So figured out, what does the price need to be, just doing math on a piece of paper. If I buy it for this, I had all the prices. If I could sell it for this, what is my margins? Basically just, went through every step and then got this product. And I used to string all the bags. I did everything, right, to make this kit, assembled the kits, all the above. And I just assumed, hey, I'll build a website, people will go buy it. Learn very quick, that's not how it works. Yeah, so I built a website. My first website was like $2,500.
You built it yourself, or you
No, I paid somebody.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
No, I'm not that smart.
How did you find this person?
Through Tucson, just
Okay,
a local guy
okay.
that I used to see out
Okay.
party with. He had some, website building business. And then we launched the website and realized it's crickets. Like, what am I going to do now? So started entertaining videos on YouTube. So I did a video on YouTube, was on Facebook. I really didn't know. And the more research that I did on, like, because you want a target audience, right? You want a niche that you can really pinpoint and laser focus on. Well, the sneakerhead market was really, it's a culture. And if you don't know what you're talking about, you're going to stand out like a sore thumb. So I realized very quickly, like reading blogs, and I'm like, how can I target these people? But there was a communication and language that I didn't understand. And I knew that if I tried to speak that language, I was going to get called out.
In this particular niche.
Yeah. Yeah. In the sneakerhead niche, the collector sneakerhead. So I ran into a buddy one day at the barbershop, that I used to sell weed to, and our girlfriends were like friends.
Yep.
And I'm like, hey man, I started this business. I need some help. It's just me. Is this something? I knew he was really into sneakers. I'm like, is this something you'd be interested in? So he got back to me like probably 3 weeks later, and we met for lunch. He's like, yeah, I just went to Vegas. I've been thinking about this. Let's make something happen. So he was younger than me. He was into Instagram. Once we started on Instagram, we started doing like these dollar posts where you used to be able to sell shoes on somebody's page. Like, you own a page, we'd pay you $2. We'd post that we're selling our shoes on them, and then basically people would buy them or whatever. So we started posting ads on there, and we started getting a little traction. And that's really where we first started seeing some incremental traction and drive.
So influence, today it's influencer marketing, but really you were paying people to use their Instagram pages. Just a side note, it's so crazy to think how different those platforms are now than they were back.
I wish they were the same as they used to be. Yeah, it's not.
The amount of people, it is, I want your opinion on this once we start talking about advice and recommendations you'd have for people, because it is, I believe, infinitesimally more difficult.
Oh, it is.
To get any type of traction.
Yeah.
On Instagram, TikTok, anything in this day and age, because of the proliferation of all of those things.
It is and it isn't.
Okay, so we'll get to that part. Okay, so you have these 1,000 kits.
Yep.
You're still within that 2-year time frame where you're just trying to sell these kits.
We're selling them to all my friends, but online they're crickets. There's like one a month maybe selling.
And you still believe this is going to be a path to a better life?
Yes.
100%.
Because it worked so well, and everyone that I showed it to was like, yeah, this is awesome, or gave one to. So I'll give you an example. I went to one of my buddy John. This is my new thing, right? This is what I'm doing. And he had a milk crate in his garage with all these old shoes that he just throws out. And he's like, let's put it to the test. We went and cleaned them, and he could not believe the difference. He's like, I'd throw these away. He's like, I wouldn't have thrown any of the shoes away.
It worked that well.
It worked that well.
So you knew you had
I had something.
product.
I just didn't know how to do it.
How to get it out there.
How to get it out there. Yeah. How to market it. I mean, I didn't know any, I'm just learning as I go.
Yeah. And so you this younger friend who's a little bit more Instagram savvy.
Just more so I'm not a social media guy. Like I can't stand it.
That makes two
to be
of
honest.
us. That makes two of us. And I'll tell you.
But you have to be
I
into
know
it.
you do.
Yeah. Or have somebody that loves it. Yeah. So he was really into it, and he had some really good ideas. So we just started seeing some traction. Once we got it to a certain point and we got through that 1,000, we started looking up here for suppliers. And so I had
looking up here, we're in the Scottsdale, Phoenix area.
Yeah.
You're down in Tucson, which is about 2 hours.
Yeah, hour and a half,
down.
2 hours.
Yeah.
And one of my old buddies had another friend who is my current manufacturer that used to he's been manufacturing or had been manufacturing in China for many years, 10, 15 years. So
what was he manufacturing?
He's more in the promo item space. So
okay.
Like promotional items.
Yep.
But he's been working with them, I mean, at this point, probably 30 years. So at that point, almost 20 years that he'd been in conjunction with this same factory or same factories that he's worked with. So he started producing some of these things for us.
China.
In China. So like we didn't start producing the entire kits in China. He started making the shoe trees.
Okay.
So I wasn't ordering them off Alibaba. He started making, I think at first I had West Coast Brush. Shout out to West Coast Brush, making the brushes. So it kind of
put a link to them.
It just pieced together, right? And we had a bottle filler in North Scottsdale that would fill the bottles, label the bottles, and then
this is so now you have cleaning solution.
Yeah. So a lot of people kept asking, "Where's the cleaning solution?" So we're like, "Oh, we got to come up with a cleaning solution." And that's when we started testing, various cleaning products, and we came out with an organic. We can't say it's organic because then you got to pay somebody, but it was an organic soap that worked really well. It conditioned like materials back, so it conditioned leather, and it didn't dry anything out. So it was made of natural oils.
So you put this in the washing machine with your.
This
kit.
is the pre-treat.
Because okay.
The other thing we had, the other hurdle we had to overcome is sneakerheads they're not prone to putting their shoes in the washing machine.
It ruins them.
So we had to educate. That's what they think.
Yeah.
So we had to educate people. So this is all timing is interesting, right? With all this, because right about that time, also Instagram started offering video, terrible video. But videos, so we just would make videos all day, just cleaning videos, before and after videos. And it was like a good time for us to get involved in social media because it was new. So we were like early adopters of these things. So timing is crucial sometimes. And I think that really helped us propel.
You believe that without those videos,
without social media, we wouldn't have been able to grow.
Okay.
No chance.
The first 1,000, what was your price point? What were you selling for? What was your cost?
I think $25 was the first price. And then I don't remember what our cost was on them back then. I mean, the margins are healthy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you knew if you could just increase the volume, you could have a real business.
Correct. And I originally thought, man, if I could just make $150,000 a year, like, I'll be cool. Yeah, I made it. 150 grand a year.
So you partner with this individual.
Yep.
To mass produce, really.
Yeah. So over time, he started making individual components, and then we realized we're spending, by the time we got our first office space, we're spending 80% of our day assembling, making product, and shipping stuff out. I'm like, man, we can't continue to do this. That's all we're doing.
Yeah. How many employees did you have at that point?
Probably 5.
This is how far?
5 or 6.
How far into the business?
It was probably 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it took a reasonable amount of time to really start getting traction.
I didn't even pay myself for 4 or 5 years.
Yep. Okay.
And luckily, I was really good with the money because we didn't take on any investors. I did have some buddies lend me money like early on. And
are you still bartending at this point to survive?
So I was until we moved. Yeah.
Moved.
So it's from Tucson to Phoenix.
Okay.
Yeah.
So once you made that supplier switch, you moved
Basically,
yourself
yeah.
as well.
Once we started doing business up here, I'm like, man, I need to get out of it. I realized Tucson wasn't the best place to launch a business or to grow a business.
Just because of the ability to get suppliers, or
Just
because it was all e-commerce. So why did it matter
it's
where you
just
were at?
because people are up here.
Okay.
Just in general.
The vibe, getting the word out, the Instagram,
There's not that type of business getting done at Tucson.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and I was I'm just 34 or whatever at this point, or however old, 36 maybe. I'm like, it's time to get out of here. I've been wanting to get out of there for a while. This
Okay.
was just the excuse that I needed.
What year was that you moved?
2013, 2014, I think.
Okay. And did you know that this always was going to be successful as an e-commerce business, not as a retail shop or anything of that nature?
We built the whole foundation on e-commerce.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is a blessing and a curse now, but
so that's what I want to talk about, because you've seen a lot of these companies untuck it.
Yeah.
I don't remember how they started. I've studied that story. It's fascinating. And while retail is dying, they've actually seen a tremendous amount of, I think it was 2019 when they really decided to grow the brand in retail, selected retail locations. And it's been a tremendous, a real differentiator for them.
Oh, yeah.
And so I want to talk about, have you ever thought about doing that or partnering with other retailers? But let's go back. So you're slowly growing the business. You have 5 employees. And the reason I ask why it took so long is because we've covered this in a matter of 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And there's this sensation. People always think point A, point B, wealthy, loaded, because we covered in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, the reality is the sleepless nights, the painstaking, smash your eyeballs out, ready to quit. I mean, that's almost every week in a new business.
I thought in the early days before we started seeing traction, I thought about quitting a few times, but I'm like, man, no, this is such a good thing that I know that I just need to figure out how to do it.
Why did you think about quitting?
Just because I wasn't, getting anywhere for a while. Like I just couldn't. I'm like, I didn't know what to do.
So was it the financial pressures?
It was just
lack of progress.
Lack of progress. Yeah.
So what do you say to people? I talk about this almost every episode because it drives me nuts that our whole society is so focused on this stupid device here. And I see it with my nieces and nephews. I see it with all the generations below me. And it's really starting to permeate all of us.
Yeah.
We have everything in a matter of 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Everything. And I'm a big believer, and I think the studies show that that is actually negatively impacting our
100%.
ability to think.
Yeah.
Have patience is a virtue desired by many, achieved by few. I always tell my nieces and nephews, what you just said is you wanted to give up so many times because you weren't seeing the progress that you wanted to see.
Correct.
And that was 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago. Now, people who have grown up with these things, how do you expect them to possibly have the emotional fortitude, the mental fortitude to continue when it's not coming right away? Because you're an adult at this point and you're saying, I'm ready to quit. Now, you didn't.
Yep.
But I see it every day. If it doesn't happen, I just posted this video. I mean, you had the website. Where's all the orders? I just posted this video and I don't even have 1,000 views yet. What's going on here?
Yeah.
What advice do you give? Because that is becoming scientifically increasingly more difficult for us as humans, given everything is so easy to actually do.
Yeah. I mean, I wish if I could bottle that up. I mean, it's just how bad do you want it? At the end of the day, that's what you got to ask yourself. Like, if you're willing to put in the work, how bad do you really want it? Anyone that tells me they want to do something, I want to do this, I'm like, okay, how bad do you want it? How bad do you actually want it? And if you're stopping, you don't want it that bad at the end. You just don't.
You're just lying to yourself.
Yeah, you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Tell us probably in those first 4 years, I'm sticking to the darkest moment you had.
I mean, I don't remember the darkest moment. I mean,
one that sticks in your mind, because building an e-commerce business, I've done it.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about Amazon.
Yeah.
Had a business that's done 5-6 million on Amazon, and they own you.
Oh yeah.
They own
We
you
we do good amount
a
of
lot
money.
on Amazon, and
Yeah.
we could have done probably 10, 15 had they not screwed us, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But it takes a tremendous amount of marketing dollars,
Yep.
patience, posting constantly before you see anything. That's today, and it's a lot easier to do that stuff today. Anybody's got a camera. Back then, it was even more challenging to do this video and everything that you can do today. So I want to hear, why did you keep going?
Because I knew, number one, I didn't have another option. It's either go like that. There's power in being broke, right?
Yeah.
So not many other options. I'm gonna go sell cars. I could go. I mean, I was in the motorcycle. I was a finance manager at a motorcycle shop. I hated the job because you had to rip people off to make money. It was just like, so I knew that those were my other options. Go sell cars, do something like I don't know. So I didn't have an option. So that's helpful.
Being optionless is one of the strongest motivations there is.
Yeah. And I also had, it's interesting because I borrowed money from one of my buddies, high school buddies, and he's like, I don't think you're going to be able to do this. I don't think you can do it. But then I also had one of my other buddies like, if anyone can do it, you can do it. So I would take both of those as driving force and energy. Like, okay, I'll show you. So I don't know, man. It's just, I think it's in you. It depends on how much you believe it and where you are. If you have other options, well, maybe it's not that important.
You never doubted the product yourself for a second, did you?
No.
I think that's a huge lesson, because I'll have people that come to me and say, I know this can work, but I can look through their eyes and I can say, you're lying to yourself, and I can see it. And trust me, if I can see it, and you don't even believe it, everybody can see it. So how do you think people, I guess, find something that you actually do feel that way, because you're not going to be able to fake it?
Yeah. I mean, even still to this day, I've been doing this a long time. I'm still surprised at how well it works sometimes. I'm like, man, those shoes look so freaking good. Like, I cannot believe those cleaned up so well.
And you know what surprises me? That you have made a multi-million-dollar business out of this.
That's what, it's interesting. Well, how old are you?
I'm 36, going on 37 at the end of the year.
So growing up in Tucson without one of these phones, right, where you have access, you don't even know what's possible, number one. So back in the day, I'm 47. You don't even, unless you travel or you have friends or you know people that have money, you aren't even aware what is possible, number one, to start. I forgot where I was going with that. What'd you ask me?
We were talking about, I can't actually believe that you have built a multi-million-dollar business out of this so simple concept.
But you know how much money, now that you're older, like, you realize how much money is out there.
Yes.
There is money to be made.
Yeah.
Like, being naive to that, though, because people tell me all the time, is that your full-time job? I'm like,
even today?
Yeah. You do that full-time? You sell shoe cleaner? I'm like, yeah.
And I'll tell you, Steve's doing pretty well, because he drove into the parking lot with this beautiful, big, giant truck, and I'm like, what do you pull with that? And he's like, oh, I got a boat that I like to use every once in a while. So I love that people are still asking that question.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. If you don't understand, I mean, I'm sure there's certain businesses, and I pay a lot more attention now to, like, around me. I'm like, how do they make so much money doing that? Like, so I'm very curious now, just because growing up, I didn't realize what the possibilities were. And, the more money you make, you hang out with different people, and you just see that there is so much money to be made out there if you have drive and can figure out how to go make it happen.
That would have made it even harder if you didn't know the possibilities to continue doing it, though.
Yeah, well, that's why I thought $150,000 a year was going to be great.
Okay, so tell me, first year sales. $1,000.
Who knows? Yeah.
Okay.
First year, I don't even know.
When did you know? Because you've been doing this for about, you talked about 11, 12 years.
Yeah.
When did you know this will be a multi-million-dollar business?
I would say by the time we moved up here, so this is probably year 3.
Okay.
We just started seeing, one of the things we did on Instagram early on was we posted on Sneaker News. So it was $1,000 for the post. And this is, that same post right now would probably cost you $20,000. And we didn't know what was going to happen. $1,000, we had like $5,000 in the bank.
Mm-hmm. Took a risk on marketing.
Yeah.
I want to talk about marketing because it's the hardest place to spend your money. But the most important.
Yeah. So we can get into that. And it did numbers. Like we basically went from maybe, and again, my numbers are probably inaccurate, but let's just say $150 a day in sales to $300. Just from that one post.
Just from that one post, you doubled your daily sales.
Probably. They were low, but we doubled our sales and we got like 30,000 again, 30,000 followers maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, that was awesome. We need to do that more. Now that's not going to work quite so well because everyone wants so much money that the value is just skewed.
I was going to say for $1,000, that's probably the best $1,000 you've ever spent in your entire life.
Probably one of the best $1,000.
And now you can't even touch that. No. The average startup can't even.
No.
Unless if you've raised millions in VC money, but
yeah,
then it's just, as you said, a waste of your dollars.
Yeah.
Okay. So year 4, when you realized it was a multi-million-dollar business, how much were you doing in revenue?
Probably $300,000 to $600,000.
$300,000 to $600,000.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And you had 5 employees.
Yeah. Again, those days are a blur.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I got a terrible memory.
We were working and partying pretty hard too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're working hard, playing hard.
Yeah. So basically, I'll kind of give you an idea of what happened. Is myself and Rob, the guy that I was working with, we moved to Phoenix.
Rob's the guy, the Instagram guy, the guy that knows all the social media.
Yeah. Okay. He was basically, I gave him sweat equity.
Okay.
We moved to Phoenix, North Phoenix, and moved into a house. He had a friend in Philly that did video production. He convinced him to move down to Phoenix. And then I had a buddy up here that was working for Five Guys, managing restaurants, that I convinced to move in and work off hours until we could afford to pay him. So those were the first team. And we all lived in the same house, and we all shipped product. That's what we did.
Yep. Made
product, shipped product, strung bags, just lived it. And then one day I basically said, I'm tired of living in this. I'm gonna look into getting an office. And I got pushback from them because they like the free rent and all that. And the next week I had us an office. So I basically just started reaching out to people. The company that was filling the bottles said, "Oh, we got an office space up north. You guys can use it." He didn't even want to charge me. He's like, "Oh, you can use it. It's just an overflow." There was 10,000 square foot warehouse with office space. He's like, so I'm like, I don't want it for free. Let me give you $500 a month. So we started using that space, and then we were able to grow.
And that's part of businesses legitimizing themselves. You got to get out of the house, the garage. You got to get into an office space, start building a culture, especially when you're going to start hiring outside employees outside your friend group.
Yeah. And one of the things we did early on that I think helped us was we would send free stuff to people with orders. Like I remember and he ended up being an employee of ours. I noticed that I think he posted something, tagged us on Instagram saying, "Hey, I just made my kit, support local." So I sent him a bunch of free shit. And he just became a huge fan of ours. And he used to stop by and buy products and sell them to people. And then he came and applied for a job. He became a good friend. He ended up leaving not too long ago, and we don't talk anymore. But that's a whole nother conversation.
That happens, yeah.
Yeah. But, really just taking care of your early adopters and going out of your way to make them feel like, you really appreciate them. It's harder to do at scale, which I'm trying to figure out. How can we do it that same way? Because I think it goes a long way too.
You sell all across the world.
Yep.
you sell on your website,
Yep.
Reshoevn8r.com,
Yep.
and we'll spell it towards the end. Or I'll put it in the link because it's got a little. It's not how you would think it would spell.
Yep.
On Amazon,
Yep.
website or Amazon, which does more sales?
It's typically been Shopify.
Okay, your website.
This year, it's pretty close to 50-50.
Okay.
So I know all about your pain. I mean, Amazon takes about 33%.
33% easily. If you're going to do two things. Number one, it's almost a scam because unless if you do Prime, FBA fulfilled by Amazon, you have to.
Yeah.
So they get another, whatever, 15% or 20% just to do that. You have no choice.
But
they have, I got to say, Jeff, you have figured it out.
Oh, he has figured it out.
You have figured it out because you guys print money, and I know Jeff is
it's money
off our backs.
Print.
But the reality is, 50,
people
50.
shop. Well, here's the thing: is they make it so easy for consumers that you almost have to be on Amazon.
You do. Do you believe any product across the value spectrum needs to be on Amazon? Because you just said you think anything needs to be on Amazon, and I'm curious about that because you don't find a lot of luxury goods on Amazon. No,
you do. That's the one thing that's not on Amazon, but it would do well if it was.
You think you don't think it would harm the reputation or the very brand itself?
I mean, that's why people aren't doing it.
Yeah. And I ask this because you've grown a huge e-commerce business. How many employees do you have now?
We have right now probably 15.
And you're doing millions and millions in sales.
Yeah.
And I read so many articles. Do you have to be on Amazon? To love Amazon or not to love Amazon? Yeah. That's the question.
You just get so much visibility there. But here's the thing too, is when we started selling on Amazon, there was like 2 or 3 of us. Now there's like 50 because blood in the water, the sharks come. We've seen a bunch come and go, but there's a lot of competition now, which we didn't have, 6 years ago. So the climate has changed. It's more difficult.
And that utility patent is helpful, protective, not helpful.
We've had some people do some things to try and get around it.
I mean, China's good.
Yeah, China's good.
China's really good.
People, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a way around anything. So.
And I'm not saying that in a positive way. I mean, they'll rip off.
Oh, yeah.
They'll rip off anything, try to get around anything.
I've seen imitations of our stuff out there. Like they used the same color palette. They used all the same stuff. They had a different logo and name, but even in the fine print on their packaging, it had our name on it. Like they just
copied everything, basically.
Terrible. Yeah.
So I want you to put yourself into advice mode.
Yep.
E-commerce, I believe, is one of the most challenging businesses that there are in this day and age.
It's much more challenging now than it was 2 years ago.
So let's say because of COVID.
No, because of iOS 14 update. So the privacy laws.
Oh, yeah.
So your tracking
capability. I was just talking with another entrepreneur the other day, actually, for a business that my brother and I have, King's Wood Shop, and we want to do an advertising campaign. And their ability, this was with a woodworking magazine, it's impacted all of them because of that exact thing that you just talked about.
Yeah.
So have you had to adjust your business because of that?
Oh yeah, we're still adjusting it, trying to figure it out.
Okay, and for those who aren't in the industry and aren't privy to how the privacy laws changed, clue us in.
The best way for me to explain it is the privacy laws changed, so previous to iOS 14 update, you could track someone for 30 days. So if they came to your website, you would have 30 days of visibility on them to retarget them, to do whatever. Now it's a 7-day window. So you basically have 21 less days, however many less days, to track them. So what that does is you come to our website. We know that you were at our website, but on the 8th day, I don't know that you've been to my website again. So now you're going back into the prospecting campaign and you have fallen out of the retargeting campaign and we're spending money on you again. It's totally changed the game.
Be more specific about how it's changed the game for you, changing that 7 days to 30 days,
so
30 days to 7 days.
cost to acquire customers 3 times what it was 2.5 years ago.
Because what would happen before iOS? I'd go onto your website,
Yep.
and you had 30 days to. What were you doing with that information?
Just retargeting you. So basically, I knew that you came to our website, you didn't make a purchase. We would be able to send you online ads that.
So you didn't have any of my information.
Didn't
you
have
didn't
any
have my phone number,
information.
email,
No.
anything like that.
It
This
just
is all through cookies and through tracking.
All tracked through cookies.
Yep.
And now the cycle starts over. So now we got to pay again to get in front of you, a higher clip, and you have less visibility and the tracking. So if you, for instance, too, if you came in on day 1, you came to our website, and day 10 you bought, I don't know you bought from that ad, so I can't tell how well that ad is working because I'm not tracking you anymore. So it just complicated the entire ecosystem.
And you're still figuring out how to adjust.
Correct.
And maybe the reality is there is no way to adjust. It's just you have to sift through the data much more carefully to verify what's good data and what's bad data.
There's that. I think there's different strategies again. And I know what I know, but I let experts deal with that stuff too, because, just if you've ever read the book, Who Not How, let somebody, don't try to figure it out. It's going to take me way too long to really get into the nuts and bolts of it.
So we're 2023.
Yep.
Steve is, how old were you when you started the business? 32, 34?
Well, I'm 47 now, so like 34.
Okay. Steve's 34. You come on this aha moment of cleaning shoes. Doesn't exist in the marketplace.
Yep.
You're in 2023.
Yep.
What actions do you take? Because you're not getting that Instagram ad for $1,000 anymore.
Yeah. To me now, I think it's personality. So it's more, I think one of the things that we haven't done a really good job of for our business is we sell a great product, but there's no personal connection. So really, I think in today's market, this is why self-branding is so important, which I freaking hate because I hate being on social media. But people are buying things from people, not from businesses, if that makes sense. Yeah. So really, it is that personal connection. So if you can be popular, this is why influencers are so popular and they can sell anything. So it's really, you got to find somebody, a great influencer that can support your brand and believe in what you're doing. And you have to be able to afford them, which again, we can get into that too, because that influencer thing is just totally crazy now. I was involved before influencers were influencers, and I've seen it from day one to now. And it's like, dude, what do you want? What? You want me to pay you what? You're crazy.
What are they quoting you these days?
Oh man, it all depends on who it is.
So give me the lowest profile influencer that would have been helpful for your brand. So they have to have some credibility. And what were they asking?
So we were going to do a deal with Fabulous, the rapper.
Okay.
I honestly, I think it was $50,000. I don't even remember what we were getting in return.
But for one post.
No, it was more. It was more than that. It was a campaign.
Okay.
Yeah, one post, like it ranges. I mean, man, anywhere from 10. I mean, depends on how big you are. From $100 to $25,000 or more,
depending on the influencer.
Correct.
How popular they are.
The problem is one-off posts just don't work.
Right.
They don't work, so it's a waste of money.
Anybody that's been in marketing, a commitment to consistent. You know what? That's basically my new motto: commitment to consistency, and it has been internally within all of the organizations that I'm a part of. A commitment to consistency, things won't work overnight. Marketing campaign, if you're not willing to do it 6 to 12 months, then don't even consider spending any money because you need to have a commitment to consistency. Yep. I mean, it's just a work ethic, commitment to consistency. It's across the board. And the very nature of our society, Steve, is like a train track pushing against that very concept of a commitment to consistency. Whether it's, you can relationships, business, work ethic.
Oh, yeah.
You go across the line. So what I want to finish the influencer conversation, and then we'll continue this. So you're seeing that have you done any influencer marketing campaigns as of late?
Yeah. I mean, we do them all the time.
And you're just being very selective because of the cost?
Yeah. Well, we're being selective because the costs they're unreasonable at this point. Because what happens is, as they continue to get bigger, they get big brands that offer them. Let's just say, I'm going to use a number because this is an example that has happened to us. Oh, Adidas just paid me $5,000 for a post, and I'm like, okay, understandable, but how many times are they giving you that $5,000? Right? Like, you got to think long term, and I try to tell this to all of them. It is long money, not short money. I would rather make $1,000 a month for 3 years than $5,000 one time. And they just cannot grasp that concept.
Again, it goes back to what we were just talking about. Everything now, everything today. So 2023, Steve's got this idea.
Yeah.
You believe you have to build a personal brand.
I believe it's going to be much easier now. Depends on how much money you got. I mean, there's a lot
You're
of
broke.
factors. Yeah, you're broke. Yeah, you need to build a personal brand. You need to build a person. Or you have just such a great idea that, yeah. I mean, there's ways to do it. That's just how I would do it.
But to build a personal brand,
you got to have a personality.
Well, you've got to have a personality or fake one, but people will see through that. But again, that's the attention economy.
Yeah.
That's going to take years and years.
No, not. I mean, yes, but everything's going to take years.
So I think that's the key piece that so many people don't realize.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what path you choose.
Unless you are just some fluke thing that you get blown up. You do some TikTok that, as blows up, but the chances of that are slim. If it happens, great. But it's going to take years, regardless of what you're doing.
Do you ever worry that suicide rates are through the roof?
Yeah.
In general, there's a lot of negative things you can focus on. And we don't focus on negative things, but we also want to be realistic on the podcast, because everything is about taking our being and just branding it and selling stuff.
Yeah.
Now you've just said, to be successful, you got to build a personal brand and self-brand.
I'm just
saying
is
basically commercializing. And I'm not saying I disagree. Do you ever where this leads?
Yeah, no, I who knows? I'm a lot of personal brands. I don't know. Yeah, but people want to buy something from somebody.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, not really a business. And one of the things that I've been trying to accomplish recently or been thinking about is get away from the CEO, running of the business, which I'm not that great at anyway, and become more of the founder, face of the brand, because I do have a story to tell. I just haven't found it's not as easy as one would say, and I'm not that interested in. I just holding a camera out like this just does not excite me at all. But I know that's almost necessary at this point.
If you're going to build an e-commerce company, really any company, because what company isn't e-commerce at this point?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously a service company. But you got to have digital following. I mean, you got to, even if you're a salon, for example.
Yeah.
People have to have that connection, and so much.
And it depends on what you're trying to do. If you want to be a local business, that's cool. You probably don't need to do that. If you're trying to scale it to, like, my goal's always been sell it for $50 million, you're going to have to do some things that, are more challenging and you don't want to do. So be comfortable being uncomfortable, like they say.
I love that you brought up goal setting, because I think too many people kind of wander aimlessly, and I'm just as guilty of this. You're so in the business, you forget to work on the business and think strategically and think long term versus short term, and start setting goals and then actively working to achieve them. You just said your goal with the company is to sell it for $50 million.
Yep.
That's still your goal.
It is, and only because I want to take care of the people that have been working with me for a long time.
Okay. Do you believe it's achievable?
It's going to be tough. I think it's achievable, yes, but it's going to take the right team. I mean, it all comes down to the team at this point. So we need to have the right team and the right finances available. Like, we really need a strategic partner to be able to get it to that level.
Yeah. What about product? You're very focused,
Yep.
and I've looked and seen how you guys have expanded your product offerings. But do you believe that in order to accomplish that, you're going to have to expand your product offerings even more?
Probably. Yeah.
And how for you? Obviously, business happens, and you realize, okay, we've kind of capped on this product line. We need to add something to it, or we need.
Yeah, I've made some mistakes there, though.
So that's what I wanted to get into, because some people add stuff just for the sake of adding it. Big mistake.
Yeah.
That will don't fall into that mindset, because I have. It sounds like you have.
I've done that, or just something that I wanted to do and not really done the research and gotten to find out what our customers actually want. Yeah, so I've made some. Again, I've made some mistakes when it comes to adding new products.
All of us have. Yeah. So that's what I want to talk about next. Failures.
Yeah.
What's the biggest failure you've had that has? Well, and what did you learn from it? I guess let's stick with that for now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just a few different products. I'm not going to go into detail on exactly what they were, but
not even one.
Nah, I mean,
were they related to the current brand, or was it something completely outside your niche?
No, it was related to the current brand. Okay. I mean, for instance, the luggage stuff that we sell now, it's just not. It's not moving.
And do you believe that it's not moving because it is a dichotomy from what your current customer base is coming to you for?
Probably that. We don't market it as much as the other stuff, so it's hard to like create content around all of the different things that we offer, right? So we really stick with the main ones.
You have to focus.
Yeah. So it's, even though some of those videos that we've created with the luggage is like some of our top performing content, it still is just not, something's not resonating. Yeah.
Well, that's an incredibly competitive market. Not that yours isn't, but niches get riches, right?
Yeah.
The luggage market is not a niche market, and everybody.
And it's expensive. Yeah. Like the stuff that we did produce is nice, so it's not cheap.
What made you want to get into luggage?
Well, we were wanting to expand our product line, and it made sense. Like,
why did you want to expand your product line?
Because we've had some good success with that, and I'm tired of traveling and not having the right stuff. Like, I want to take my shoes with me, so it solves a problem. But there's already people doing it. So really, the reason that we started it, one, we were already working on it. Then I had an investment company approach me and wanted to inject some money, and they wanted basically to kind of run an M&A strategy for growth. And one of the businesses that they were looking at was it's like a sneaker luggage brand. I'm like, why are we going to pay $800,000 for them when we could just do this ourselves? Right. So I'd already been thinking about it. Then when they brought that up, they're like, yeah, since your customer base is still, it's pretty much the same customer base, right? It's a sneaker luggage bag. You should be able to help them. They had a 2-man team, so they needed help with content, creative, all, just management of the business. So we turned that investment down, and I'm like, we're just going to try this ourselves, because to me, I can spend 50 or 100 grand on this product and do a test. I'd rather do that than spend $800,000 on this company that's not really making money. You know what I mean?
Did they have any goodwill or anything that you can't just recreate overnight? Because that's why you M&A, right?
Yeah.
That's why you buy another company, because they can double your sales quickly. Now, if it does, a lot of times that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But there was nothing notable, a particular patent or anything of that nature.
No.
Okay.
So, I mean, back to, fails. I mean, that's one. I mean, there's so many. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and you focused on the luggage side of things. I want to take a step back on marketing before we get
Yep.
into more broad entrepreneurial type advice. Marketing is probably the most challenging area in the business to spend money.
Yeah.
Because unless if you have spent a lot of money on marketing, you know what works and what doesn't,
Yeah.
you basically have to throw gobs of money at it, especially in the e-commerce world. And I say that on a whole host of different things and narrow down what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
We had talked about marketing a little bit earlier, and you said that's a whole nother conversation. I want you to talk about marketing and your experience.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think the climate's different now
Then
than when over the last 10 years.
But you're still operating a business in this climate.
We are. And we're spending, I mean, I've spent, just to kind of, to go back, pre-paid social. So we were doing everything organically. We were not getting like paid search, paid social, right?
So you're talking about before that $2 Instagram.
No, this is after that. I'm talking about paying Facebook,
Okay.
For paid social ads.
Okay.
We found an agency that we basically got into that market, right? And we started paying an agency to run these ads. I mean, it doubled our business. So I think finding the right...
They managed all your social ads and everything of that nature.
All the paid stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, none of the organic.
Okay.
So we basically create organic content and we repurpose it for paid search, paid social. It's finding the right people to help. I mean, it's such a touchy subject because unless you have money, like we were already doing okay at that point, you have to spend money to make money. Right? So if you're spending $1,000 a month on that stuff, it's not going to do you much good. Right? So, but you also have to prove that it works. So there's a lot of testing involved.
You think $1,000 a month is too small?
It depends on what you're trying to do. If you're local, that's probably okay. We spend, I mean, over $1 million a year on advertising, if not more, maybe two.
And most large e-commerce businesses do and have to.
Yeah.
But a startup doesn't have that
They don't.
opportunity, Steve.
No.
So are you saying what you did 12 years ago is impossible today?
No, not at all.
Okay.
But I wouldn't start with paid media, paid social, paid search. I would start with an influencer thing, or it totally depends on the product too, because if you have a product that you can showcase visually like ours, then you just create your own content. And that's one of the benefits that we have is we can create content that showcases how it works.
But there's 1 million people creating content, and that doesn't mean many people see it. I'm creating my podcast, and how do you grow a podcast? You got to get eyeballs. You got to get listeners. I guess that only comes with time, or you spend boatloads of money to get it out there too quick. I won't say too quickly, but sometimes too quickly.
Yeah, I mean, podcasts are a little different because everyone's doing a podcast.
Yep.
So there's a lot. I mean, I think there's over 1 million podcasts.
Yep.
So I don't know how many are in the genre or category of this, but I'm sure. I mean, you're competing with lots and lots and lots of people.
Isn't almost every product though? Anything people start?
Yeah, but not really. I mean, it depends. I mean, that's something you should address if you're trying to bring a product to market that is not different, right? It's the same as something else. You probably, if it's not better, like you're probably wasting your time. Like it needs to be definitively, how can you prove that yours is better or different than something that's out there? That's what I would focus on.
Okay, so you said you don't think it's impossible for you to do today what you did 12 years ago.
It's just going to be a different...
But there's 1 million competitors in this industry. So you're saying you'd have to be in a different industry?
It would be much harder to do, like if I was going to start a new shoe care brand, yes, much harder. but there's people doing it. Like there's somebody now, a competitor of ours, and this is why I say goes into personality and one-on-one connection. He is the brand. People are buying it because of him, not because his product actually is pretty terrible. But he is a character, and people are supporting him. That is why he's becoming successful.
That's funny you talk about that, because I think what you said is more and more products are being sold by Mr. Beast.
Yeah,
I know. I didn't know who Mr. Beast was 3 or 4 months ago. Now it's all I ever hear from. That stuff drives me nuts. But I've learned more about the business side of my nieces and nephews, and so now you get to go to the store and you buy D's nuts, and he's got all these.
He's the beast.
He's the beast,
Yeah.
and the more I've learned about him is because I'm very much like you. I try to shield myself from this cacophony of chaos in social media, but the reality is you can't.
No,
you can no longer do that. And if it's not your bailiwick, you got to find, like you said, an agency or someone on your team that's what they wake up every morning and they're excited to do. I want to talk about, you've been through a lot of struggles.
Yep.
If you had someone sitting here today listening to this and they desperately want to start something, maybe they're in a corporate job. I'm just going to use that, making $200,000 a year, real comfortable job.
I mean, they're already ahead of the game.
Yeah. Well, they are. Yeah. But I've been in the corporate world. Yeah. I've been in, CPA by trade. Been in the public auditing sector. I've been in finance. Bankers can make really good money, but a lot of people, especially if you're someone who was born to be an entrepreneur and you're not fulfilling that passion, the money doesn't matter. You can be making $300,000, you still feel empty.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to them how to break free from the rut that they're in to do something like what you did?
I mean, start small, baby steps. That would be my suggestion. Prove the concept. So you don't want to just quit your job and say, okay, there's a time for that, but you got to prove that it's actually a viable thing too.
Okay, and what if someone comes to you and says, because this is a question I get all the time, well, what should I do? What should I start? I want to start something, but what would you tell someone?
Something you're interested in. It's going to help.
But there's a lot of things that people are interested in that, I guess, that do what you love.
Yeah, I mean,
that phrase has driven me a little bit crazy for so long, because I was my business partner Joe and I started a trash company at 22 or 23. Okay. White collar worker.
Yeah.
CPA, just knew nothing about this. Do you think I loved trash?
Yeah, no.
I absolutely hated it. But I did it for 10 years, and that allowed me to eventually have a successful exit and get to doing what I love.
Yeah. Yeah, but how did you come up with the trash thing?
Oh, we were young, dumb, stupid, and
well, there's
just like there's Genesis stories to all these reasons.
There's power in that too.
Yeah,
not knowing any better.
Naivete can be a very powerful thing.
If I would have known how hard it would have been, I probably would never have attempted it.
What you went through.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I think most entrepreneurs, if I wasn't so naive, there's no way I would be able to actually mentally handle it if you knew what was coming your way. Yeah. So do something you love.
I mean, that's just going to make it easier to keep waking up and putting effort into it if you actually believe in it and care about it, right? There's so many businesses you could start. I mean, it really just depends on what you're trying to do. Like you, I don't know much about the trash business, but I'm assuming you guys said one day, let's try this, and you guys started. You saw an opportunity somewhere.
We thought there was an opportunity, and there ended up being, but we paid our. So that gets to, do you believe almost any business can be successful? What does that mean?
With the right, no. I mean, it depends on the idea. It depends on lots of things. I think that, with the right team, again, you're only as good as your team.
Mm-hmm.
And doing things by yourself, you can only get to a certain level. So I don't think any business is possible because just some are not, or they don't have the right people behind it, or it's just. But I think that there's a lot of opportunity to start a business and be self-sufficient if that's something that you want to do.
Why do most businesses fail?
People give up.
And how do you know when you should give up because an idea is a failure or an idea is, or when to keep pushing?
Or people aren't self-aware or reasonable. Like you also have to have some common sense too. Because there are sometimes that people, they're not in reality of what's real. Like they think that this is such a good thing or that they're so good at this, but in all reality it's not real. Like it's their vision and that's what they think is happening, but in all reality you don't think that, I don't think that. You know what I mean? So I kept getting reassurance. I could have had my heads in the clouds up here. Oh, I got the best thing. And people could have thought something totally different. I just kept hearing, oh, it works so good. Yeah, you got something here. You know what I mean? So I was getting reassured that I was on the right track.
You were getting customer feedback that
Customer
there was
feedback
something here.
and friends and family. Like people need to be honest. Some people just aren't honest either.
Yeah.
Like you tell them your idea. Oh yeah, it's a great idea. But really they're thinking, good luck, buddy. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think any business is possible, but I think that if you are dedicated and really tried, there's a lot of possibility out there.
Is there anything that you found helpful that you think would be specifically helpful to our listeners that we haven't talked about? Like a key missing piece that has contributed to your success?
It's a good question. I mean, being humble, I think is one.
And what does that entail? What elaborate on that?
Well, just because, some people get a little success and they want to show off all over Instagram or whatever, and some people just change, like when they make money, which I think is, it's going to limit the possibilities if you become a jerk. So, I mean, that's one, just because I just feel like the same guy that I was 20 or 15 years ago. Same kid from Tucson. I don't look at myself any different. Just being open, open to change. You got to be open to change. And really just, finding the right team. It's all about your team at the end of the day.
That's one of the hardest things to do in this day and age.
Oh, it's a pain in the ass.
So what advice do you have to actually accomplish it?
Yeah, I mean that's so tough because in the beginning I hired friends, which was a mistake. I wanted to help some people that I grew up with, and that can be that can get sticky. It's really just caring about your team. I'm listening to Radical Candor right now. I don't know if you've read that book or not.
No.
But it's pretty good about leadership and just being honest, which is something that I've struggled with in the past. I've been, as a leader and as a business owner, I've grown so much. Like when I started, I was a totally different person. And
that makes two of us. I think that's probably the most enjoyable part of the whole experience is how you develop as a human.
Oh yeah.
As a business owner and a business leader.
And to keep growing, you have to keep like you really, and that's a good point, is your business is only going to grow as much as you've grown. So self-development is something that if you want to continue the evolution and the growth of the company, you have to elevate and you have to grow yourself. Mm-hmm. It's going to cap where you cap personally, unless you have someone that's leading it that's in a good doing their thing and they really know. Like, that's the thing. I never run a business. This is all new to me. I'm still trying to figure it out. I still don't know what I'm doing. I still don't.
Anybody who thinks they know exactly what they're doing, I think they're lying to themselves, really. I mean, I think you can get a better idea and you can learn, but because the environment, everything is changing so much.
Yeah. Well, and I've never done like this. This is the first time I've been at this point in my journey. Like, if some people that have run multiple businesses and had exits, they kind of know the strategy and they know the plan, and at what point do you raise money and all of the stuff that I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure that out as I go. So yeah, I don't just growing, being open to growing personally, I think is probably a pretty important thing.
For e-commerce businesses, let's say someone wanted to start an e-commerce business.
Yep.
What are the top 5 tools you would recommend that they use?
So Shopify, if you're going to sell a product, they just make it so easy. It's not cheap anymore. Man,
that's basically to build a website and to sell your product.
Yeah, it's just the platform to use. You definitely want to be on social media. I mean, you want to leverage as many social media platforms as possible. It all depends on the niche and your product. What's most successful for us is YouTube and Instagram.
And why do you think that is for your? Because I hear lots of things about TikTok and I mean, YouTube and Instagram, I guess the top 2, but Facebook and
long form works for us because I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it. I don't know why it works better for us than short form. But going back to the influencer thing, because I did want to bring this up, we've found much more success with YouTube influencers than TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, because the life of that content is it lives so much longer.
It's got a very long tail.
It does. So Instagram and TikTok, gone. I mean, it is gone fast.
Yeah.
Some of our best videos, I mean, we still make money on videos, are from years ago. Like, people are still watching that stuff. So, and we found with, influencers, it's the same thing. They promote your product. That lives for a long time. So if you can find influencers on YouTube and work with those, that's going to be probably the best bang for your buck.
Because you guys have over 1 million subscribers on your Reshoevn8r YouTube channel.
Yep.
When did you break that $1 million or $1 million? That million.
We broke that, I mean, in the old building, so probably 2017, 2018.
And was that, in your experience, did that seem like it happened as quickly as it should? Was it painfully slow to get there? Was the process to get there, did you stall out? And I ask this because so many people are trying to make it on YouTube.
It's hard. Yeah, no.
But they don't. The reality is it's almost harder than running a business itself because everybody trying to do it. So you guys utilize the business, and for the sake of the business, we're able to get 1 million subscribers, and it was kind of a self-feedback. They benefited each other.
Yeah.
A lot of people are trying to just do YouTube as their business, and that makes it exponentially more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a influencer or a face of it, so consistency. It's like like you said, it's consistency. We have not missed a Monday or Thursday video in probably 6 years. So consistency is king.
Yeah.
Even if you're just trying to become a YouTuber, like, you got to be consistent. The more you put yourself out there, the better. I mean, if you're posting once and then not doing it for 2 weeks, it's just not going to work. Good luck. Yeah.
Do you find Twitter helpful for you guys?
Not for us.
Doesn't really.
It's more of a conversation.
Okay.
So it's great if you're engaging in conversation, but to like promote a product, it doesn't do much for us. Yeah.
So Shopify, YouTube, Instagram.
Yeah, those.
What are maybe some of the back end analytical programs that you utilize, if any? Because tracking your marketing dollars in the e-commerce world is really hard.
It's just
but it's important.
So we just kind of stopped using a service called Northbeam, which is good. It's just, again, it's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
what did it do?
It just tracks all of your different avenues. So in it, all of your platforms. So it tracks, it basically condenses it all into one platform. So we can look at what, paid Google AdWords was doing. You can even break it down if you do a UTM parameter on certain videos.
UTM.
So
what does that mean?
It's a tracking. I don't know what the
what it stands for, but what is it tracking essentially?
So it's basically, you just put it to track content. So you can put it on a post, and then it tracks how many people engage with that post. So we put it on every video. So if, for instance, we do a cleaning tutorial video, we have a UTM tracking on there, and we know how many people actually come from that video, make a purchase because of that video. So that's UTM tracking is super
That's
critical.
huge.
Yeah. Because you have visibility. Otherwise, you don't know. Okay, where are these people coming from?
Yeah.
So Northbeam was good. We're trying to reduce expenses right now, and we just decided to get rid of it because GA, Google Analytics does do that. It's just a little more complicated to use. And here's the thing, man. They all want credit. I don't believe any of them. It's just how close can you get?
Yeah. Google AdWords, has that been particularly effective for you?
Yeah. Google Shopping for sure is pretty critical.
Did it take you a long time to zero in to campaigns that work? Because that's the other thing. Jumping back to marketing, and I think is probably one of the hardest parts of any business.
Oh, yeah.
Even in trash locally.
Yeah.
I remember year 2 or 3. Year 2, we said, well, we can't afford to spend money.
Yeah.
And year 3, well, we were ready to go bankrupt, and we said, well, our main competitors spent money about 6 months in advance. Had we done it year 2, year 3, we said, well, we're going to go bankrupt anyway, so we might as well just load up the credit card and put it all on advertising. Do a 18-month radio campaign, and it was
killed it,
Steve. It was we got a catchy commercial. It was just exploded. Just exploded.
And we had, why didn't we do this?
Well, I think about why we had little kids running around the neighborhoods yelling our tagline. Really? It's got garbage, get pro viral, and we had it all over. And that's what I say. Do you believe any business can make it? Of course, not any business can make it. But I believe that marketing almost allows any business to make it. But it is so hard to spend money on, especially in the early days, because you don't have much of it.
Yeah, you don't have much. And when you're spending a little, it's not really that effective. You have to get reps in. It's like anything else.
Yeah.
You have to spend enough to actually learn. If you're not spending enough to actually get good data and learn from it, you're just wasting money. So it's coming up with a plan to really say, okay, like you said, what if you decided not to just say and spend? I don't know what your budget was or what you ended up putting on credit cards.
I think we ended up spending $80,000.
Okay.
And that was
a Hail Mary.
That was mind-bogglingly a lot of money at that point in the business.
But and that's where, again, that's the risk that you took that a lot of people are afraid to take. And I don't recommend early. I mean, at least you had 3 years of being in business. And you're like, this is
rad, but you're right.
This is a last ditch effort.
Yeah.
It's either this or we're closing down. But that's risky, but without risk, there's no reward.
But businesses have to advertise.
They have to, yeah.
And what I'm hearing you say is, if you're going to advertise, you have to advertise big, otherwise it's not going to work.
You don't have to advertise. You just got to be calculated. It all depends on the business. Because what if you would have only put $5,000 in? Again, I don't know what the options were.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have got the same results.
No, well, it was all about consistency.
Yeah.
It was about repetition.
Yeah.
Having the customers or potential customers just hear over and over and over and over again. We're talking about trash service. Nobody cares about their trash company. Nobody. I mean, it's a very challenging industry to get anybody to care or think about. But as a business owner in that industry, you want everybody thinking about it, and nobody is. So you got to find a way that when there's a problem, then they think of you.
I would say test and just go into it knowing, hey, I'm just throwing this number out, $10,000, and be willing to lose it. I mean, because chances are you might.
Yeah.
I mean, we've lost a good amount of money, and you got to be careful with agencies too. They all promise the world, and none of them over deliver. I'll tell you that right now. I've been doing this a long time, and I've never, ever, 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 ever had one that has done what they say that they can do.
So that's another question that I want to ask you. There are a lot of agencies, companies starting up that will manage all of this, because it is impossible for a business owner, especially just starting off, to wear this hat, this hat, and then try to do all the social media. There's too much. So what advice would you give for people that recognize they need to hire someone to do it? But
I wouldn't right now that there's and this is something that I'm entertaining, is looking into offshoring. Because you can get people that are smart, and they, no offense to Americans, but a lot of them don't want to work very hard and they want to make a ton of money. So there are other opportunities there outside of the US where you can find really smart people at a fraction of the cost. And you don't need to pay an agency fees with all their overhead. You're just paying one person to do this stuff for you. That's where I would probably start. I wouldn't hire an agency, because they're all full of shit. I'm just sorry they are.
You haven't found one that's really successful?
I've found some that are okay, but none that have done what they said. Oh yeah, we're going to and performance based. So a lot of them are going to performance based now. The problem is, if you're barely starting, you don't have a lot of money to spend, they're probably not going to want to even take you on.
Yeah.
Because it's so you're in a weird situation. I would look into offshoring and finding some talent outside of the US that one person can manage and help you grow it.
I'm focusing on a lot of e-commerce stuff just because of your experience.
Yeah.
And you've been very gracious with your time, so I won't take too much more of it.
Oh, no, that's fine.
What are the tricks to Amazon?
I mean, you got to spend money on Amazon too. I mean, you got to get on the first page. I mean, it's...
So you spend oodles of money on their marketing?
We spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, at least $2,000 a day,
easily.
if not more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you believe that's the only way to make it on Amazon?
Or it depends on your product. You find a niche product that, there aren't a lot of people selling it to competition, but you need reviews. I mean, Amazon's a tough nut to crack.
Yes, it is.
Because like you said, you don't have the customer information. You can't, there used to be strategies on getting reviews, but you risk putting yourself in a situation where they're going to close your account if you do anything, outside of the Amazon platform. I mean, so Amazon's just, again, it's repetition. You got to get people to buy it. I mean, they're good.
Oh, they're
yeah. I had when we first started on Amazon, I had employees buy it from the same IP address, and they flagged it. They're like, "Oh, we know.
Oh yeah,
we know what you're doing.
Oh yeah,
yeah." They're not stupid. I'm like, oh, they're really on it.
And they protect. I remember in this business, it was we started the pandemic, and it was making masks in the United States, not from anywhere else, with U.S. made material. And and Amazon was obviously, that was a lot of people were going to Amazon for it. And I remember one of my business partners, Samantha. I'm used to just picking up the phone and calling a customer if there's a problem.
Yeah.
Well, Amazon gives a phone number, and I didn't really pay. She kind of handled all Amazon. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to call this phone number. And
no.
So I called and she found out, and she said, "Do you know they can close our whole account for you?"
It's their customer.
It is their customer.
Yeah.
And so I think if you're thinking about utilizing Amazon, recognize that the policies that they have in place and your ability to meaningfully alter that interaction or that customer service experience is very limited, or very non-traditional, I should say.
And you have to have good margins if you're going to be successful there.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. You have to have very good margins, because if you're just doing something that's a commodity, you'll die.
Yeah.
It won't work.
Yeah.
Steve, thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
Anything else you want to share before we go?
No, just I guess if you got a dream, work towards your dream. You know what I mean? Like, you are your worst critic, number one. And if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to believe in you either. So I would say those are my words of advice. And, you know, educate yourself and grow as a human. Always just try and learn and better yourself, from a leader to personal to all the above.
And looking back on everything you've experienced, you'd do it all over again.
Yeah, honestly, it was more fun in the beginning. Like the early days when we were struggling, it was more fun. Now it's a real business. Now I got employees. Now I got people trying to sue us. I got it's just a totally different ballgame.
There's a lot of responsibility. Yeah.
So it's a job.
Yeah.
So it was actually more fun. You gotta enjoy that process and journey, right?
Yeah.
You may think it sucks, but that is really where the magic is.
That's where the enjoyment is.
Yeah.
Steve, thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
We really appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Awesome.
Well, that's all the time that we have for this week's episode of the Andrew Holland Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Steve gave us some incredible information on many aspects of business. If you're thinking about starting an e-commerce business or a business that is focused exclusively on online sales, I would strongly heed Steve's advice. Really think about the marketing strategy that you're going to utilize. As he said, it is so expensive if you're going to do any type of paid advertising. Organic marketing, content creation on your own to the extent that you can is probably the best, most cost-efficient way to start. And as the business grows, you can start spending money on that area. Tell us what you thought about this episode. If you have any suggestions or you have any comments or conversations on what Steve and I talked about, please reach out to me on Twitter. My handle is A Holland Podcast. Of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Andrew Holland Podcast, so that you can get updates every week when we post the video version. And we grow when you like our YouTube videos, when you subscribe to the podcast, when you share it with your family, friends, and of course, on all of your favorite audio platforms like the Andrew Holland Podcast, and share it with people that you think will also get value from it. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk again next Wednesday. Thank you for listening to the Andrew Holland Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, theandrewhollandpodcast.com, for additional content on business, entrepreneurship, and everything in between. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Andrew Holland Podcast, to get notifications when new podcasts have been released. And lastly, follow us on Twitter, A Holland Podcast. That's A Holland Podcast, for all the conversations we're having outside the podcast. Thanks again so much for joining us this week. Have a great day, and we'll talk again next week.